Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Talk. Happy Tuesday. So I see we've already got a couple people in the room, and I know that a couple might be late tonight or unable to join. It's back to school time, so there's open houses and school shopping and all kinds of crazy stuff to get done for the kids. So totally understand that, but I think a few will be joining later also. Oh, look, the first one in, Aline. So, hi, Aline, and hello from Florida, and hello back from Florida, and to everyone else from Florida. And Ricky, second one in. So, hello from Vegas. I wonder what the weather is like there. You guys are still, well, we're still, I mean, like in August, so I'm sure it's stifling, but you guys get a little bit of a fall, and then sometimes you get snow. So, that'll be good to hear. Hi, Chantilly. Hello. And yes, hello again from Florida. And nice to see everyone. And yeah, I'm sure it's super hot. It's been so crazy here. Like you step outside and the humidity is so bad, you instantly feel like clammy. It's awful. So, anyhow, I don't know what you guys are drinking tonight. So if you want to share. We haven't officially done a wind down the week yet, but Ricky, we've got to get on that. But I have tonight. I have cider, hot cider, apple cider. Didn't want to do the tea because I don't want any caffeine this late. And I'm going to try not to drink this through the whole hour so that I'm not getting too hydrated before bedtime. So anyway, what do you guys have? Let me know. Share what you're drinking tonight. And then the topic for tonight is about auditing and data sample. So I get asked a lot of questions about auditing from, oh gosh, people outside of of the Stalking Horse family, people inside the Stalking Horse family, those wanting to get into auditing. And so one of the biggest potential hiccups you can have is in regard to the data samples. So we're going to dig into that tonight. And if you guys, just to remind you, if you have any questions and you want to shoot us an email, you can email us at ttalk@stalkinghorsellc.com. You can also visit our website and reach out there. It'll go to one of our admin emails. We also have different webinars available on our website, as well as some information on Tea Talk. So past Tea Talk episodes, sometimes we have documents that we share about certain topics. You can find that there. They're just like helpful tips and tools to use. And then just don't forget to join the herd. So if you were watching us live and you're not subscribed, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can actually click the reminders buttons so that when we go live, it'll let you know when we have a live planned. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So join the herd and follow and like and subscribe. Also, those in the room and for those that may watch this after we're done being live, please make sure you give it a thumbs up for this episode if you enjoy the material. That way, it will be more likely to come up on someone else's search. Also, looks like we've got some sharing going on over here in the comments. So, Aline, you are drinking Coca-Cola. I would have guessed that. I think you've said Coca-Cola a couple times before. And Chantilly, I wonder what you're drinking. And Ricky, are you drinking wine or what? And I know we have a couple other people in the room, so don't be shy. But if you are, just, know that we're friendly. Yeah, laugh out loud. I know. We're seeing a pattern, a trend here. We know you love Coca-Cola. So to kind of jump into it, the auditing, again, we're just kind of asked tons of questions about auditing. and how to get into it. What's the process like? How does it work? And I think it's important for both the client and the auditor to kind of understand the full process. But um, when you're looking at becoming an auditor, of course, there's some certifications out there. I do find that the certification, so if you're doing like physician provider audits, the certification through AAPC, the CPMA, it's one of the ones that I hold. I actually found that exam to be well written, actually. Like, I can't remember what year it was that I did it. I don't know if it was like 2015 or something, but that particular exam I felt was well written and fair. But I do find sometimes certain other certification exams are not as realistic. But I do think that the CPMA at that time was pretty in line with like what you would need to know as an auditor. Of course, there's some things that you need to know for the exam, but that you may not always have memorized, but that are readily available to you online, like certain laws, certain rules and regulations around um, different policies and procedures that are supposed to be in place. So that kind of stuff you can always access. Anything to do with compliance and like recommendations by the OIG, like that stuff is always there. So it's not typical necessarily for people to memorize it. Some people just work like that. The brain's kind of just like that information sticks. Certain things stick in my brain, other things don't. And I tend to not, I don't like work to memorize things, especially if, I mean, specifically if it's something that I can look up, right? And that's kind of what coding is all about is do you know how to use your tools that you have? And it's about research and looking things up. So you're a bit of a detective. So, and Ricky is having coffee today. No wine, surprising, or tea. So, but coffee's always good. I had some earlier. I was kind of staying away from caffeine for a little bit, but I did break down and have a little bit today. So that's that. But so then once you get into auditing, there's all different kinds of audits that are requested. Sometimes an audit is necessary for a practice or a facility or an organization because they may have had difficulties in the past or been through an audit where they signed an agreement to participate in external audits and reviews and be given education. So there's all different kinds of reasons why. Some may just want to, improve their performance, check to make sure that the documentation is actually reflecting what's being coded. Because remember, all organizations are different. Not all organizations have coders. And then some that do have coders have such a high volume of claims that there's no way that a coder can look at every single note, or they don't have enough to look at every single piece of documentation and code it. So there are instances where they may want coders audited. There's instances where they want providers audited because the providers are also selecting the codes. But then the underlying question is always too, how's that documentation looking? Is it supportive? Is it not? Is there any documentation improvement opportunities? So really the auditing sort of goes hand in hand with a bit of CDI or clinical documentation improvement. So when you get a request for an audit, some organizations know exactly what they want you to look at. And so they're going to say, hey, we want you to do an evaluation and management services audit with diagnosis codes. We want you to specifically look at our level 4s and level 5s and see if our documentation is supporting those. They may give you a reason why they want you to look at that specifically, or they may not want to give you the reason why. And that's okay too, because remember that sometimes, more information can actually potentially impact your point of view, right, on it. So sometimes it's good to just not know too much so that you're not expecting something or looking for something, but that you're just taking it as it is and as it comes, and looking through the documentation and supporting those codes, which is the way it should be anyway. But there's some potential occasionally for when something is disclosed, some auditors may be swayed one way or another. So sometimes they don't want to kind of deeply explain exactly what's going on. Other times they do, because sometimes they want full disclosure, specifically telling you every detail and tell you what they want you, if there's something specific that they want you to look for. Like one of the requests that used to happen quite often, hasn't been as much since the guidelines changed with evaluation and management, but with evaluation and management in the past, they used to say, oh, we really want you to keep your eye out for cloning or copy and paste, like overuse, any issues with that, because they may think that some providers may have a tendency to use that feature of their software incorrectly or inappropriately. So they may have certain things they want you to keep an eye out for. So it's always great when they know exactly what they want, because it sort of makes your life easier. Then you will have some clients where they're like, hey, I don't really know what we need. And that does take a bit more work on your side, kind of walking through and talking out the situation, their particular circumstance, and then coming up with a recommendation for them. And moving forward, with that can be a bit challenging. But there are two things that typically can really throw a wrench in the smoothness, so to speak, of the auditing process. One is the accessing the records, so getting either system access or them providing you with the records to review. I don't know why, but that access can sometimes just be insane. Recently, was put on an audit. We got an audit that, I kid you not, it took over 3 months to actually get the appropriate access needed. And it took multiple layers of people, because some of these larger companies, there's a lot of silos through departments. And so it may not be clear as to like what specifically you need access to in order to get the records that you're needing to review. Those larger companies may have multiple specialties, and they also may have different medical record software systems for different specialties. It can be pretty crazy. Hi, Christy. Christy made it. Thank you. Welcome. So I think we've got almost everybody's commented. Don't forget, if you're in the room, don't be shy. Say hi. Join the herd. So, and anybody that has questions about auditing, you guys don't be shy. Feel free to ask. You know that we love that back and forth and the chatting. So, but with the auditing, again, like if the system access is a challenge, that's pretty standard up to a certain degree. Normally the clients think that that's going to be super smooth, like, oh, don't worry, yeah, we know it's the system and we're going to get you in. But typically that does take a little bit of time and effort, especially the larger they are. Typically the more complicated it is, usually. And then the next item that usually throws a wrench in things is the sample. And so that's the title of tonight's Tea Talk. So let me take a sip here. The data sample can be a nightmare. Again, for clients that understand it or know exactly what they want you to look at, typically that means that they have the right people on the calls to actually get you the information that you would need. So they then would understand, like, okay, we're auditing this specific service. Like, okay, we're going to audit bypass, cardiac bypass surgery. So these are the claims that I'm going to look for. These are the dates. Well, we're going to mix them up. And sometimes the client will say, we know what we want, so we're going to provide you with that sample. And that sample may be random, or they can say, no, we specifically know which cases. It's their selection. Other times they may say, hey, can you pull the sample for us? That gets to be challenging because you would have to typically be familiar with their software system or have a good contact. It would require pulling data from reports, having access to claims information. The claims themselves are super helpful to look at. So if it's a provider audit, again, you're going to want those CMS 1500 claim forms for each item that's selected, for each data service, each patient that's selected for the audit. If it's a facility audit, you'd want that UB04 to be able to look at. So just depending on the type, there's going to be different items that you may need. But if you're not familiar with their software, you're definitely going to need some assistance. And then, again, in talking about the sample with them, depending on how they want that pulled, they may say, hey, we want you to audit these coronary artery bypass surgeries, but we want it to be a random sample of that universe. So the universe is, hey, all of these, bypass surgeries, which are, and you may know those codes when you're auditing that, and then, confirming those with the client sometimes is also necessary and good. So, okay, we're going to confirm that this is what we're looking at. And then within that universe, we want a random sample of, and so it could be based on each provider. So they could say, well, we have 20 providers, and so we want you to look at X amount per provider. Or they may ask you, hey, how many do you think we should have you audit per provider? So once you get that narrowed down, and let's say they have you pulling the sample and they want it random, typically the preferred route is RATstat, which is a free software that you'll find online that the government uses also, that you can actually download, and you would put the information in the RATstat software, like your universe, the number of potential claims and what you're looking for. And then you would generate, you'd kind of hit go, so to speak, and you generate a sample based on that. So it would give you different numbers that you would choose, and then you would go into your report and you choose those line items. And then it would be randomly selecting your sample. So I'm really simplifying that, but if you're interested in RATstat, first of all, let me know in the chat, because I could share some information, possibly a link on that. And you would actually be able to find some YouTube videos about using the RATstat software that are very, very helpful. So there's actually no reason for me to redo that or whatever, or go over that. There's some really great videos on YouTube already for RATstat. So that's a great software tool to use. And it really doesn't matter what type of auditing you're doing. The RATstat always comes in handy. So I have it on my office computer because I'm having to pull randoms often. And even when we do audits internally, when that happens, we can use RATstat. Some people use another type of like random number generator. There's different ways you can go about it. But if the client has a preference, or depending on, what the purpose of the audit is for, you may need to use, again, a more like technical and well-known method of obtaining that random sample. So especially if it's something that's like attorney-client privilege, because a lot of times there will be audits where the client actually has an attorney, and then your contact is the attorney in regard to that audit. So in that case, usually, again, you're wanting to be very formal, very specific, and being careful about which tools you're using. If it's something that's more like informal and it's for provider education and there's not any kind of super strict rule or guideline around like what they're looking for, you may be able to get away with using some other kind of random number generators to get that data sample. But one thing that happens often is a client will provide you with a sample, and they'll usually do that through Excel, and they're giving you the cases that they think they want you to look at and everything. But most of the time, there ends up being missing information. And that can get super challenging. So, again, that's where we would say really make sure you get those claim forms to match up with what they have in the sample. And really understanding the audit ahead of time is essential. There have been a few times where I've been like subcontracted to kind of take a look and perform an audit, but perhaps the scope wasn't super clear in the beginning. And what you think you're supposed to be looking at doesn't really match what they've provided to you in data. And then sometimes you come to realize, oh, they actually are expecting a different type of audit from the agreement that we actually drafted based on the data that they've submitted. So that data can be really, really tricky. So having the claim form to line up with what they've supplied is like super important, very essential. And so you would want to cross-check the sample to the claim. The same can be said for you if you go into their software and you generate a report that supposedly gives you everything that was billed. You want to make sure and be absolutely certain that what you're seeing is actually what was billed out the door. Because remember, too, there could be claim corrections. There could be where a provider goes in, puts in a charge, but then a coder goes in after and maybe modifies it, and then something goes out. So you have to be careful about where you're pulling that information from. But those data samples can be an absolute nightmare if you're not careful. So I, again, recommend having the claim form, having a discussion prior, like with the client, making sure that you guys are completely on the same page with what the audit is for, and narrowing down the focus of what are we actually wanting to do? What are we actually looking at here? So I don't know if anybody in the room is currently auditing or interested in it. If you are, please make a comment and we can focus on that, and we can answer some questions around that. Let me take another sip here. I don't know if you guys hear the subtle meows in the background, but that would be Gilly. And we will see if she wants to come over and say hi. Maybe not. She's going in the other room. If she comes over, I will introduce you guys to Gilly. She is super cute. Not the brightest, but super cute. Or at least she's one of those cats that doesn't want you to know how smart she is. We'll say that. You know, she could be a true genius and has us trained, as many cats do. Okay, so for those of you that are thinking about auditing, again, for provider side, I highly recommend the CPMA exam. But if you're going to focus in on something like specific, and you're going to go to, let's say, risk adjustment, the CPMA isn't really going to help you with that, because the CPMA is focused like more on global auditing from a CPT perspective, where the CRC risk adjustment is completely ICD-10 focused. And so, you know, if you're going to really focus in on risk adjustment, I don't recommend the CPMA. That would just be experience, you know, years of experience. And just remember that these certifications have not always existed, right? So prior to them being out there, people were auditing. There were consultants and auditors. I know several consultants that have been in the game for years that have maybe one certification, but they have so much knowledge, so many years of experience, that the certification at that point isn't necessarily super important. Obviously, with the the groups, the different coding academies like AAPC or even like with AHEMA and everything, they've worked super hard at making a name for themselves and their certifications. And don't get me wrong, it's great because it does give a an understanding that a person that holds that certification has a certain base level of knowledge, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're great at it or that they do know everything about it. And so there's also that experience level. So we also hear a lot about new coders having a very difficult time like breaking into coding because they get the certification and then they're looking for work. But a lot of places will say, well, we want you to be certified with 2 years of experience or maybe even with a year of experience before we'll bring you on. And then it's like that whole thing, well, how do I get experience if no one will give me experience, right? So there are companies out there that will hire without that experience, and there are auditing jobs that you can potentially get without the certification. But I will tell you, if you don't have a lot of experience and then you also don't have the certification, I don't know who's going to hire. There are some billing companies out there that I found that are focused on billing. They're kind of old school billing companies that do hire people that are not certified and they do some coding work. I'm against that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that it's a good idea for many, many reasons. And many times when I have done some reviews, we're come to find out like there's a billing company involved where that's the case. The coding is a mess, and usually they're using outdated guidelines. Like when you ask, they're using stuff like 95, 97 guidelines for E&M. They're, following old diagnosis coding rules. And that tends to happen because people get complacent. They get, like, okay, I've learned this. This is the rule. Well, things change. And in this field, especially if you're auditing, like you need to be on top of all of the different changes that are coming around. Otherwise, your work is going to be, poor or obsolete, not the best. So yeah, so hats off. All that matters is that she's super cute. Yeah, well, yeah, right. When they're cute, it's she's somewhere around here. It's hard to even get upset at them. But she's a small cat, but she has the largest meow ever. You would think she was like a tiger. Oh, so okay, auditing. So yes, you're gonna be working in that in the future. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so this topic then is probably going to be pretty good for you. And depending on where your mindset is now, I'm sure you might come back and listen to this tea talk again in the future. And so, Christy, you say networking has been your savior. That's true. And to be fair, not all networking groups are made equal either. I know that the AAPC, they have different chapters, different chapter locations that you can join and you can network. Actually, unfortunately, I think our chapter, my local chapter, is probably meeting tonight. And it just so happens that they meet, I think, the second Tuesday of every month. And then because I do Tea Talk, I miss those. But I know that they have all different kinds of topics that they do. And the networking can be great. I think in particular, to be honest, the LinkedIn can be pretty good too. I don't know. I know, Christy, you're on LinkedIn for sure. I know Ricky's on LinkedIn. I think a couple of others in here have profiles on there, but I don't know if I've actually seen you guys like too active on it. So if you use LinkedIn right, I think it's definitely helpful. Although I did make a post not that long ago on LinkedIn, and I asked a question and I didn't get any responses. It was in regard to nursing questions. So I guess maybe we don't have that many nurses following, or I don't have that many following my in my profile. So that could be why. But yeah, networking for sure. And also it's true that the people that really can get you in the door and get you more and more opportunities. And that can even be said for the auditing side. Like if you're looking to become an auditor, if you don't work, or even if you do work for a company that kind of has like audits coming in, depending on your position and whatnot, you may even be required to go to some networking events, like some of the conferences. You may be required to speak at some conferences, because when you actually go out and do that and start networking at the conferences, you typically can engage with obviously people from all over and potentially get work from that. And that's important. But then even knowing other auditors is fantastic. Like I can't tell you, there's a couple auditors that I have good relationships with, that if a project comes to them and it's something that they're not, either they don't have the bandwidth to take it on or they're not interested in it, they will refer to Stalking Horse, and then that client gets introduced to us, and then we get a lot of work that way too. So even just kind of knowing, because some people, are going to focus in areas that you don't, and you're going to focus on areas that they don't. And the same thing with all different companies. So there's just going to be certain types of audits that you don't do or that others don't do, but you can share. So that's always also helpful. And the clients actually really appreciate that too, because then they're getting a recommendation from someone that they trust. So if they're recommending you and they already had a level of comfort with that person for whatever reason, it kind of gives you, a better chance at connecting with them and it working out. It doesn't always, because maybe they're even looking for something that either you can't provide, or they may be taking in several offers and then looking at pricing and whatnot, and then they're going to select who they think is best suited, and that could be based on a number of factors. So again, doesn't always mean you're going to get it, but networking is super important. And so, Christy, if you get a chance, what do you find is the best place for networking? Where are you having the most success in networking? I'm kind of curious as to what your opinion is on that, and I'm sure some other people in here would like to know too. Because I think, again, not all networking groups are made equal. So I'll be interested to see what you have to say. The AAPC conferences too are okay for if you want to network peer-to-peer, but in my opinion, there's really no opportunity there for growth usually not from a employment perspective. Normally not. Their conferences usually are coders wanting to learn more about a specific topic. And once you get to a certain level of experience, a lot of their topics kind of fall short. Like they don't necessarily go into as much detail as you would want. So that's also a challenge. I know that they're working on kind of getting some more detailed topics, and that's one of their goals that they've had. And that they're really trying to get some sessions in their conferences that are a higher level of difficulty. I'll put it that way, or higher level of understanding. Goes in deeper. And then the MGMA, I think that they're great for networking. So that's the Medical Group Management Association. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. I'm like, acronym. What does it stand for? Yeah, so the MGMA, they have conferences, multiple throughout the year. And you may find some that are like better suited to your position or what you're looking for. They also have a lot of speaking opportunities, so you can submit a request to speak. You have to do a lot of background work on that too. But their conferences are typically pretty darn good and great networking, because there's all different kinds of people there. There's people from CEOs down to, entry level positions that, may just be working in the, admissions of a hospital, or even, coding directors, or regular, coders that are just part of the regular team, or nurses. There's like the whole array of people. So they have conferences throughout the year that focus on different things like finance. So if you're wanting to learn more about how like financial impacts from a larger level of a healthcare group or hospital group, then you can attend those, but you're going to see those types of people there. So then you're going to see CFOs and CEOs, and so again, all different kinds of levels. So depending on what your networking goal is, I think MGMA is pretty good for that. Then again, there's other conferences too, similar to AAPC, that are just geared toward education, like NAMUS, which is the Auditing Association. They do a lot focused on education, again, for auditing. And I probably should have mentioned them earlier because this is an auditing T-Talk, right? So that's NAMUS, NAMAS. And so they're an auditing association. And their stuff is pretty good. There have been times in the past where they've put some things out like immediately after Medicare has maybe made an announcement about a policy change and whatnot, that I, wasn't necessarily like maybe, how do I want to say it? Like my opinion on what it was saying didn't 100% align always with what the voice was from NAMUS, but eventually it typically gets cleared up because Medicare will come out with, more clarifications or Q&As on that specific topic once you're, looking for it. So it will usually become more clear as time goes. But NAMUS does also put out several free things on their site. Like I know when the E&M guidelines changed, they had different tools that they posted that were free and they share. But of course, all these associations too, they want their dues. So you can check out their websites and you can get some information for free. But eventually there's a point that you reach, and then, hey, you need to become a member, and then you have to pay for the membership. And so it can get pretty pricey if you're going to be members of AAPC, MGMA, AHIMA, NAMUS. And then, one of the ones that I really like that I've mentioned before too, just if you're into like vascular or cardiothoracic surgery or cardiology, interventional cardiology, is Z Health Publishing. They have really great stuff, but also you have to pay there. So you only get so much, and then you have to pay. Oh, so Christy, she got back to us here. Let's see. Okay, so you've had your best success on LinkedIn. Okay, you haven't made it to anything for your component association yet due to it being so far away. Yeah, that can be, if you are feeling like extra motivated or whatever. I don't even know exactly what the word would be, but normally you can reach out and say, hey, my group is so far away. Can I start another one in this area? And usually you can find out if there's other people like that are near you that also are far from a meeting. A lot of times they'll be like, yeah, you can start one there, but you have to be like ready to go and get that set up. I know the AAPC does that, so I can't imagine that AHIMA wouldn't do it either. But yeah, best success on LinkedIn. I buy that totally. I agree. I think that it works. So I'm glad to see that it's working for you. Okay, so you spend your days in webinars also. Most of your networking is done online, but has worked out. So you snagged you 2 mentors yesterday who have been in the business for 30 years now. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So finding mentors is a great idea if you're new, and hanging on to them can sometimes be difficult just because of the nature of the beast of this job. Like we kind of like accountants, we have like busy seasons. And so depending on the type of coding that they do or billing that they do, the specialties that they're in, you'll kind of see like this like flow that they have. And so certain times they may get crushed with work and not be as available. So it's nice to have a couple of people that you can kind of depend on and reach out to. So that's awesome. That's great, Christy. Glad to hear that. And I know that Ricky and Aline, we talk a lot. I know we deal with each other, so that's great. And Chantilly too. So yeah, that's pretty good. I can't wait to see what everything like what comes in for you, Christy, as far as final job and your next certification's pretty exciting. I think the whole group is excited here. So APC has one here, but I'm in HEMA. I spoke with HEMA council member yesterday over the distance. She said she'll bring it. She'll bring it to. There you go. Yeah. So, especially if too they're kind of competing in a way with the APC, right? Like sort of, just depending, because they've been trying to break into the outpatient space because HEMA's been for many, many years so inpatient focused, but they have more and more for the outpatient side. So they certainly should want to rival them and make sure that there's meetings for you to attend that are closer to home. So that's not a surprise there. Totally not a surprise. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions about auditing and the data sample, but I thought it was a good topic to go through tonight, especially because it's been rearing its head for like a couple of months on our side. So I'm figuring, like maybe this auditing season has started already, because typically that kicks up toward the end of the year, because for some reason at the beginning of the year everybody makes these goals. The companies make these goals. Okay, this year our audit plan is going to consist of like X, Y, and Z, and we're going to, have that done. We're going to contract with a company. But then before they know it, it's July, and then they're like, oh, we haven't done anything yet. We need to get this done for the end of the year to meet our goals for our plan. So then they're reaching out to everybody to get audits done. And while it's great to have business, sometimes it gets a little bit crazy too, because then you've got the holiday season there as well as like this auditing work come in. So I kind of think that it may have started a little bit early this year. And so I've been seeing again some of these data sample problems, and I'm like, we should probably chat about that, for especially too for those either that are just getting in, or from the provider side, or from the facility side, those that are kind of looking to have one done. Those are the things to look for. So if you guys have any questions, don't forget to comment, and you can email us at our T-Talk email, it's ttalk@stalkinghorseLLC.com, or at our website, stalkinghorseLLC.com. So don't be afraid to reach out. And so, Christy, so you threw it out there that that APC has, and what you do. Oh boy, they probably didn't like that. That's pretty funny. But Lindsay, that's smart. Yeah, that's pretty smart. They do need to earn it too, because all these associations, they take they take fees, they take the money from us, and what do we get back for it? And that's also one of the reasons that we decided to try T-Talk, because it's free. Like, you guys don't have to pay right now to be a member of the group. We can all network, answer questions. It gives me something as far as giving back. I don't have to leave my office, or I can do it from home, but it's a way to talk and give back, and also hear about the challenges that other people have, because that's always helpful. The back and forth is, super helpful, and it's nice to get others' point of view as well, and to hear about what other people may be struggling with. And some of the topics that have actually come up and that have been requested, I've had to do some of my own research for, and bring that to the table. So it's also pretty cool, because it gives me a chance to look at some things that maybe I haven't looked at in a few years, or perhaps never had to look at before, but then pulling guidelines on it to try to help. It's pretty fun. So this is, again, like a way to give back and kind of help the coding team, so to speak. Because, at the end of the day, if you think about it, like, what we do does have an impact. I think everybody forgets, like, you get into it and then you're just thinking, oh, okay, well, what I do is I get this coded to get these claims paid, right? Or I'm working these claims to get them paid, to keep money in the in the coffers for the business. But our codes are used for statistical information, right? And again, COVID was like the best example of that. So I also want to make sure that our profession is represented. And I think that, again, this time passed where everybody started thinking like, oh, you could just do coding and like you could do it like online and from home, and you could be a stay-at-home mom. Like if you have children at home, like there is no way that you can code and have a child there. Doesn't really matter how young. Like I have older children, and if I'm working from home, sometimes it's like, will you please stop? I'm working. Like, don't talk to me right now. So yeah, it's something that you really have to be focused on. And but this whole like wave kind of came where all these schools were advertising like, want to work from home, want to make X amount of dollars, just take our coding class. And I get it, but it really didn't send the right message. Kind of made it seem like this was like an easy, like entry level kind of thing to get into, and it's not. And it does require a lot of work and a lot of research, and again, always learning, always growing, always researching. And so, Christy, what did you say here? So we pay a pretty penny for those memberships, books, and so on. So true, so true. And that reminds me of them. They're also pushing a lot of the online books now, and I've been trying to use the online versions, but I do not like the way that they have it set up in I'm using Bookshelf. I have the paper, like the hands one too, the paper books, but I've been trying to check out the online one just to see like the difference, because of course the cost is less because they don't have to print it, so they don't have that expense. So you feel that you should have at least one meeting here and there locally and more often. Yeah, I agree. But then the thing is too, the members, don't forget, Christy, I know for AAPC, and I'm pretty sure it's the same way for HEMA, but the members are the ones running the groups. So if the members are not quality members, the groups aren't going to be good. And then the network isn't going to be good. And then the class, like if you go to get like an educational unit there or whatever, the information may just be bad. So I know some people just always go no matter what, just because they want like a CEU for AAPC, but they may not be getting anything out of it, just depending on like what the topic is and who's running the meetings. But it's also hard because if you volunteer to run the meeting and then you have a full-time job, you're basically working a full-time job plus doing free labor for the group. And they say, I know for APC, they give you these perks and stuff, but my opinion, the perks are not that great. Like you would think you would be able to get into, if you're part of the board of the group that's running your local chapter, your local group, you would think you get to maybe attend one conference a year for free. Like at least the entrance fee is free. You'd still have to pay for travel if it's not in your hometown, and lodging and all food and everything. But geez, you're representing this area. You put the chapter together. You're getting the educational material, setting all that stuff up. You would think there'd be a little bit more. It's, in my humble opinion, not that great. So that's tough too, because again, if it relies on the members to actually run it, then it depends on the quality of the members of what you're going to get, right? So, but get involved. That's the other thing. You can't sit back and complain about it. If you're going to complain about it, you might as well step up and do something about it, because that also gets annoying. Like if you're there and you're just there to complain about the problem but not be part of the solution, that's really obnoxious. So, the person should volunteer then. So what did you have here? You started commenting on all the Facebook ads for coding. Oh, that's pretty funny, Christy. Yeah, I can see, you're going to get somebody's attention for sure. Hopefully they'll get moving with that. But yeah, there should be more options. I agree, locally, and also allowing more of the remote. Like AAPC used to not allow you to have a virtual meeting. And then of course, when COVID hit, then they were like, okay, we don't have a choice. So then it was like, oh, you have to have the virtual meetings. And now it's so many need to be virtual and so many need to be on site. But I mean, look at T-Talk. Like we're doing this virtually. Like most of the education that we provide now is virtual because the companies are all through the nation. So not all of them want to pay to have fly you out, pay for the hotel, pay for your food, just to be face to face when you can do something through Teams, through Zoom, through WebEx. There's all these platforms now. So also them allowing things, webinars, conferences, they're usually pretty good at that you pay for, right? But the ones that you're able to attend, like your local meetings, let's allow more virtual then. I do understand too, there's kind of this thing with attendance. Some people may want to sign in and then like ditch the meeting. But I'm sure there's certain ways that could be controlled. And also, you can't babysit the world, right? If they're not wanting to get the information out of it, then they're losing, they're missing out. So Lindsay, the musical coding and billing advertising videos drive me crazy. They're so misleading. Yeah. And you know what, Lindsay, I think that if I remember correctly, based on prior conversations, like you're kind of like somebody who could really speak to that too, and then understand where some of the newer coders are coming from because of what you went through as far as your schooling and getting the certification and everything, and how different it was like from what you were told and then doing the training and then actually being like in the real world of coding. So yeah, pretty crazy. And Christy, you love virtual? Yeah, obviously me too, right? Like who doesn't like a good virtual meeting? Like we should all just be kind of getting together virtually often. And again, that's sort of the goal of Tea Talk is let's do that. So, but I'm not about to steal anybody's thunder either. Like I don't want to steal topics from the meetings. Cause like I said too, sometimes the meeting topics aren't great. So I have to say, I kind of pick and choose if I'm going to attend, which I haven't attended since we started Tea Talk because this is more important to me than those CEUs. Because again, most of those topics, it's not necessarily something that I'm going to learn too much about, but I do a lot of webinars. And so I never really have a problem with getting my CEUs. So yeah. Oh, Lindsay, so what did you have to say about virtual meetings? So virtual meetings have been so good. I've attended some good meetings in California that would have never been able to attend because like you said, some of the meetings are not quality. Yes, super true. And you know what, to that effect, I don't know how AHEMA works, but I know that with AAPC, the chapter gets credit for the number of attendees. And so I also think that the chapters that are really rocking it and are offering this amazing education, they should reap the reward for that. So why not open it up to where it doesn't matter where you are if there's these chapters through the nation that are having these, great these great meetings, that's topics that you're really like dying to learn more about and you can attend it. Why not allow it? The only thing I can think of is the number of CEUs, right? Because, and I don't mean to sound like, negative or whatever, but CEUs typically cost. There's a certain number of CEUs that you can get for free, but that's a limit, right? So they also want to sell their conferences. They want to sell their webinars. So I think that also might be part of the problem, that if they're competing against the chapters or if the chapters are competing against them, they may be losing out there. But they could still put a cap on it. So they could still put a cap on the number of CEUs that you can obtain from AAPC chapter meetings. And I think that could be fair, right? Because again, if you're attending them virtually, they don't necessarily know like what you're getting out of it, because not all of the meetings require you to take a test afterwards in order to get the CEU. And then even if they do, most of them allow you to take the test until you get the right answer. So really, what's kind of the point of that? So, but if they open that up, but maybe limit the number of CEUs that you can get from chapter meetings throughout a year, I think that would be awesome. And so, yeah, Lindsay, the virtual chapter meetings can benefit all. And you're also able to get speakers from through the whole nation, or really, I mean, technically from around the world, but as opposed to it being limited where if you have to have so many on sites, then you have to find a speaker, usually some of them to come on site. So I don't know. I think it opens up more. I mean, I guess technically the speaker can be virtual while the meeting can be on site. I think APC allows that, but still, I think it just really opens up a world of possibilities for us. And I'm not sure, something that may be worth a look is NAMUS, again, the National Medical Auditing Association. I said their acronym wrong, but NAMUS, their membership, I'm not 100% sure what it comes with. Like once upon a time I was a member, but I'm not any longer. I can't recall. I don't know exactly what they offer as far as meetings are concerned. Like, I don't know if they have monthly chapter meetings. I don't know if any of you guys know. But again, they do have really good information too, and they have some free stuff on their website. So, and if you're looking to get into auditing, I definitely recommend checking them out. And so, Christy, so you got your first CEU today from that event for free. Oh, cool. Yeah, Z Health also does some for free. So checking out their site, just as a heads up, they do some for free occasionally. And your like CMS, Medicare, most of the Medicare administrative contractors, the MACs. So if somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about and needs CEUs, if you don't know what I mean by a MAC, let me know and I'll explain. But the different MACs for Medicare, a lot of them also have portals that you can log into and do some activities and videos and stuff for CEUs that you could submit into AAPC. I don't know about AHIMA, how they count those, but they may. But yeah, so CMS, they have some stuff too, a lot of education. And then who else? Oh, I don't know if you guys know Brian Quee. He's on social media and he has something called the CEU hit list. And so he publishes that. It's the free CEU hit list, I think. So he actually publishes a list that can tell you where you can get some free CEUs. So you guys also might find that super helpful. So, and he did have, I don't know if he still has a YouTube channel going, because he did, and then I saw, and then it looked like he had taken a break from it. So I don't know if he's like going back to it, but he's also on LinkedIn. He posts a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. And his information is good and he's super funny. So you might want to check him out too. Oh, what happened, Christy? Yes, I was just going to say, Brian, he's on Facebook. Oh, yes, see, yeah. But yeah, he does a good list. Has a good list that he publishes for that. And then also, just in case you guys were wondering, because this was something that we were asked in the beginning about T-Talk, the reason that we don't do CEUs is because the cost for us to provide a CEU, like you actually have to pay to give people CEUs. So the only way we'd be able to give you a CEU like through the APC for free is if this was a company. So if you were part of our company, and we were doing this education as like an in-service, then we would be able to supply CEU for free. We'd have to do this whole application process and do that. But obviously that's not the case. And so there's an application fee, and it is super expensive. So it's hundreds of dollars for a CEU. And so unfortunately, at this point in time, we're not able to offer that, or we could, but then we would have to make paid subscriptions, and then that'd be a whole nother thing, because then it would only be worth it if we really pushed to advertise. But we really want this to be like a natural kind of homegrown type of situation with T-Talk. And so we've typically been doing T-Talk every single Tuesday, except for that period where I was out sick. Not oddly, funny enough, not a lot of people want to be on camera online. So, because I have talked to the team too about a couple people filling in here and there. So we'll see if anybody ends up taking me up on it. But we also could potentially scale this back. If every Tuesday is too much, we may end up doing, every other or once a month or whatever. We'll just kind of, see how it goes and what the community thinks. So we'll see. And I know that a lot of people tend to tune in also after the live. So there's a lot of people that join after, or not join, but, view the stream after too. So we'll see. But yeah, to be able to offer the CEUs, you'd have to have a price or else you'd just be, losing a bunch of money. It's pretty expensive, which again is unfortunate. And those prices went up. It seems like the price for everything went up. Everything. It's crazy. Even our memberships, it's like every year they keep getting more and more and more and more expensive. So I know a lot of the members are complaining about that too across all the organizations because they're saying, hey, you're increasing our fees, but what are we getting? What more are we getting? So, and some of the organizations have been doing a little bit more stuff. So we'll see, what comes of that. If I hear about anything, I'll let you guys know. Make sure you guys do the same for us here at Stalking Horse. So I think with that, unless anybody has any final questions, I'm going to probably call it a night. But I appreciate you guys joining so much. It was fun. And don't forget to reach out to us if you have any topic requests or ideas. Again, thank you for hanging out tonight, this Tuesday. And we will see you next Tuesday.